At 2:17 a.m., a dead man made a phone call, and someone answered. That single fact, that one impossible detail, unraveled everything the detectives thought they understood about that night, because the call wasn't a glitch, it wasn't a mistake, and it wasn't made by anyone still living. Or at least, that's what they thought. This is a story of Daniel Brooks, a missed call, and a voicemail that should never have existed. It was a quiet Thursday night in the city. No storms, no unusual reports, nothing to suggest that by morning, a case would be sitting on Detective Harris's desk that he would remember for the rest of his career. The call came in just after 3 a.m. A neighbor had noticed Daniel's door slightly ajar and knocked several times with no response. When she pushed it open and saw him on the floor, she called 911 immediately. By the time the first officers arrived, Daniel Brooks was gone. What struck everyone immediately was how normal everything looked. The door showed no signs of forced entry. The lock was intact. Nothing in the apartment had been disturbed. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no signs of struggle of any kind. His wallet was on the kitchen counter. His laptop was open on the desk. A half-finished cup of coffee sat beside it, still faintly warm. Daniel was 34 years old. He worked remotely as a software developer. Neighbors described him as quiet, kept to himself, polite when you pass him in the hallway. No known enemies, no history of violence, no reason on the surface for anyone to want him dead. The paramedics confirmed what the officers already suspected. Daniel had been dead for several hours, likely since sometime around midnight, possibly earlier. The exact cause wouldn't be confirmed until the autopsy, but there were no visible wounds, no obvious trauma. Just a man who had simply stopped. It should have been straightforward. A tragic but unremarkable case. Then one of the officers noticed the phone. It was sitting on the nightstand beside the bed, exactly where you'd expect it. Screen dark, perfectly still. Nothing unusual about it at all, except for the missed call. The officer almost didn't notice it. The notification was small, just a single line of text visible when he leaned in closer. But once he saw it, he couldn't look away. A missed call, logged at exactly 2:17 a.m. The contact name was Maya. Detective Harris crossed the room and stared at it for a long moment. The phone had placed an outgoing call at 2:17 in the morning, hours after Daniel was believed to have died. He picked it up carefully with a gloved hand and scrolled through the call log. One outgoing call, 2:17 a.m. Duration, 43 seconds. 43 seconds. Long enough for someone to speak. Long enough for someone to listen. Harris looked back at the body, then at the phone, then at the door. He asked his partner quietly who Maya was. A search through Daniel's contacts brought up a full name, Maya Brooks, listed simply as sister. Harris stepped into the hallway and dialed. She picked up on the second ring. Her voice was alert, not the groggy, half-asleep voice of someone woken in the middle of the night. She had already been awake. Harris identified himself and asked if she knew a Daniel Brooks. The shift in her breathing was immediate. She said yes quietly. He's my brother. What happened? Harris chose his words carefully. He told her there had been an incident at Daniel's apartment, that they were investigating, and that he was sorry to inform her that Daniel had passed away. The silence that followed lasted a long time. Then Maya said, simply, "That's not possible. I just spoke to him." Harris asked her to repeat that. She said it again, slower this time. Daniel called her, around 2:17 in the morning. She saw his name on her screen, answered it, but the line was strange, muffled, like he was far away or whispering. She thought the connection was bad, and then it went to voicemail. Harris told her, as gently as he could, that Daniel could not have made that call, that based on everything they knew, he had already been gone by then. Maya said she understood what he was telling her, but she had the voicemail. She had listened to it, and she needed him to hear it too. Every officer in that apartment stopped what they were doing. Harris put the call on speaker. The room went completely still as Maya found the voicemail and pressed play. It began with static, not the clean digital static of a bad signal. Something rougher, more uneven, like interference from an unknown source. And then beneath it, a voice. Daniel's voice. Low, strained, like he was trying to speak without being heard. He said, "Maya, don't come to the apartment. I think I heard something. I don't think I'm alone." A pause. Then, in the background, barely audible at first, a sound. Not static, not wind, something else entirely. A slow, rhythmic dragging, like something heavy being pulled across a floor. Daniel's voice dropped even lower. "It doesn't know I called you. Don't answer if it asks for me. Don't." The dragging sound got louder, closer, and then a second voice appeared in the recording. It was difficult to describe afterward. The officers who heard it used words like distorted, hollow, wrong. It wasn't electronic distortion, not the kind you get from a bad microphone or a cheap speaker. It was something else. Something that sounded almost like a voice the way a shadow looks almost like a person. It said Daniel's name, and the recording cut off. No one moved. No one spoke. Across the room, Maya's breathing had become shallow and uneven. She asked what that was. What was that sound? What was that voice? Harris opened his mouth to respond, and then stopped, because Daniel's phone lit up. Every head in the room turned at the same moment. The screen had come alive on the nightstand, glowing in the dim apartment. An incoming call. No caller ID. No number. Just a blank, white screen and the soft, rhythmic vibration of the phone against the wood. It rang twice, then stopped. The screen went dark. No one had moved. No one had touched it. Harris walked toward the nightstand slowly. He was 3 feet away when the phone lit up again. This time, there was a name on the screen. Maya. Harris turned. Across the room, his partner was still holding the phone connected to Maya's call. She was still on the line. Her voice, small and frightened, was asking why no one was saying anything. The room fell into the kind of silence that doesn't feel like quiet. It feels like waiting. Harris picked up Daniel's phone. The moment his gloved fingers touched the screen, the call ended. Just like that. Gone. He handed it to the tech officer and told him to go through everything. The officer worked quietly for a few minutes, scrolling, tapping, pulling up menus that most people never open on their phones. Then he said there was something there. Something set up in advance. A scheduled action. Harris asked what that meant. The officer explained it carefully. Daniel had used an automation app, the kind developers sometimes use to set up custom phone behaviors. He had programmed his phone to make a specific call at a specific time, 2:17 a.m. The contact, Maya. There was also a voice memo, pre-recorded, attached to the automation. Harris told him to play it. Daniel's voice came through again, but different this time. Calm, measured, the voice of a man thinking clearly, not whispering in the dark. He said, "If you're hearing this, something happened to me. I set this up tonight because I had a feeling. I don't know if I'm being paranoid. Maybe I am. But if I am, you'll never hear this. And if I'm not, at least you'll know I was thinking of you. Stay safe, Maya. Don't come here alone." The recording ended. The tension in the room softened slightly. Shoulders dropped. Someone exhaled. It made sense now. A man who felt afraid, who took precautions, who found a way to reach out even if he couldn't do it himself. Sad, troubling, but explainable. Harris nodded slowly. No ghost, no mystery. Just a man who knew something was wrong. Then the tech officer looked up from the phone and said, "There were 2 triggers." Harris asked what he meant. The officer's voice had changed. Quieter now. Careful. He said the automation had 2 conditions that could activate the call. The first was manual. Daniel could press a button himself to send it. That was the intended trigger, the one that made sense. But the second trigger was different. It was set to activate automatically if the phone's motion sensor detected no movement for a continuous period of 3 hours. 3 hours of stillness. 3 hours of silence. 3 hours of nothing. The phone would interpret that as an emergency, and it would make the call on its own. Harris stared at him. The officer said again, more slowly, "The second trigger fires when the phone hasn't moved in 3 hours." Harris turned to look at the body, then back at the phone, then at the clock on the wall. Daniel had been dead for hours. He hadn't pressed anything. He hadn't set it off manually. He had been lying on that floor, motionless, for hours, and the phone had felt the stillness, measured it, waited, and then done exactly what was told to do. The call wasn't made by Daniel. It was made because of his absence. The room had gone cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. Harris stood in the center of the apartment and looked around at the undisturbed furniture, at the open laptop, at the half-warm coffee, at the body that had been lying there for hours while the city slept outside. And he felt, for the first time in a long career, that he was missing something. Something right in front of him that he couldn't name. He looked at Daniel's phone in the tech officer's hand. The screen was dark now, reflecting back the faces of everyone in the room. Pale, still, unblinking. Then the phone vibrated. Soft, sudden, completely on its own. Harris froze. The screen lit up. Incoming call. No caller ID. No one moved. No one reached for it. No one spoke. The phone vibrated once more, gentle, patient, almost polite, and then the screen went dark again. And in the silence that followed, not a single person in that room could explain what they had just seen, because the automation had already fired. The trigger was used. There was no second scheduled call. Some cases get solved. The evidence lines up, the pieces fall into place, and you walk away with answers. This one didn't. Daniel Brooks' cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest. Sudden, unexplained, in a healthy 34-year-old man with no prior heart conditions. The apartment showed no signs of intrusion before or after. The voicemail was analyzed by audio technicians, who confirmed the dragging sound and the second voice, but could not identify either. The final incoming call on Daniel's phone was never traced to a source. Detective Harris retired 2 years later. He rarely talked about his cases, but when he did, there was one he always came back to. One apartment, one phone, one call made at 2:17 a.m. And the call that came after, the one that had no explanation. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more. And maybe, just maybe, check your missed calls before you go to sleep tonight.